things you already know, and then hopefully some new things too. So you all know that it won't surprise you, securing access has become really, really complex. From the days of the firewall to stopping every gap, VPNs essentially going out to the cloud. Now there's AI, and you've got more and more human and non-human identities, tons of access points, and the attack volume is increasing. Anyone in here surprised by this news? No. Yeah, it's what you live every day. So what we've been doing is thinking about it in a new way, which we call the trust fabric. So we think about the goal is really how can you secure access for any identity from anywhere to any resource, and thinking about how you can do that in a consistent and unified control policy way to everything, to sort of break down that old model and reinvent it. So any trustworthy identity, so the ones that are there on that, so that's employees, customers, partners, workload identities, and to any resource. So of course, we're thinking about on-prem, we're thinking about multi-cloud, SaaS and cloud apps, et cetera, your infrastructure. But all of this requires a new way of thinking because it requires thinking about identity and network access together in a unified way. That means, working with your network admin as well and having some shared and consistency across those. So this is a pretty big vision. This is like, how do you do everything? Like, what is the dream, right? So how do you get there? We've been thinking about how this can break down into some stages. But first, so I'll show you ideally how this would work of making sure that those two sides can safely connect. They can surely exchange data back and forth. They have access permissions. That channel is encrypted, and you can monitor that entire access session and be able to stop it if something is going wrong along the way, if any of those permissions drop. So the way that we're thinking about it, and next week actually, we have a blog post about this, but you guys are getting the world premiere of this content. It'll be in a blog for you next week, and I'll give you that URL at the end. But we think about it in 4 distinct stages that you can use as you're doing your planning and your prioritization. So I'll discuss each one, and then also give you some action steps to make it more practical of what we recommend for the first things to do at each stage of these 4 stages. Of course, you've probably also heard about Microsoft Copilot for security, which we have a session on tomorrow. And across all these stages, we have ways that you can accelerate the skills and capabilities and troubleshooting with that generative AI. So you can hear about that more tomorrow. So our first stage in establishing zero trust controls. This is really your core securing identities, preventing attacks, verifying explicitly with zero trust principles. Okay, I'm hoping for those of you in this room that these are the basics, but let's see. So, phishing resistant MFA. Raise your hand if you're mandating that in your organization. Yes, good room. Okay, we need all of you to be thinking about this though. Really looking at those phishing resistant authentication as something that's core to just give that baseline zero trust security everywhere. All right, if you are a Microsoft Entra ID, formerly known as Azure Active Directory, I've said it out loud, folks, then deploying the recommended conditional access policies. How many of you have deployed the recommended conditional access policies? Great, okay, this is kind of a trick question because we actually have started to deploy some for you. They're called Microsoft Managed Conditional Access Policies, and they take our best practices, our security defaults, and make them available to you. So you can opt out, but some of them we've already done within there, like requiring MFA for admins. But we really recommend that you go in and set up that phishing resistant authentication for any scenario. Third is probably my favorite new feature in the Microsoft Entra Admin Center. There's Microsoft Entra recommendations. So we look at your specific tenant, what licenses you have, and sort of what features or functionality should be next on your list to do. So if you have an enabled phishing resistant MFA, that'll be a recommendation on there. But it looks at your system and makes recommendations of things that you should consider doing next. Also on that same page is your identity secure score, so you can then dive into that and see different ways to increase your score. So that's also a really handy, hey, what are my next steps for improving my just baseline security based on the licenses that you have today for your own tenant. If these are more generic, that'll be the ones that are specific for you. So I just did those as the baselines. Hopefully you guys are onto those already. But I wanted to get back to that co-pilot assisting you in all the stages and what this could look like. And if you saw me playing around up here earlier, this is where the extended monitor gets a little tricky. So let me see if I can do this. Here we go. So moving this over. There we go. It's going. Did you get there? Not quite. Okay. It's almost large enough. Okay, if I extend it, so I'll just go. Okay, so I'm going to be showing you about if there's a security incident or something and you want to look at user sign-ins, it's easier to investigate now and troubleshoot with Security Copilot. So here we're looking at the sign-in logs in Microsoft Entra ID. Let me make sure I can advance forward, or I might have to use MS. Here, this was the part that we were playing with. Let's see if I can get tricky. Okay, good, got it. All right, so what we're going to do here is, so I can't actually use my mouse, so I'm a little bit clicking through this demo, but you'll be able to see I'm looking for Mike Ross down there at the bottom. So if I can look at this is how you do it without Copilot, right? I can look at the details of Mike Ross with his sign-in, his location, device, authentication, or what conditional access policy applied, or the entire report. So, or I can ask Copilot. So up at the right by the search bar, I can click on Copilot, which then opens embedded within Microsoft Entra ID. And I can give Copilot a prompt. So why was Mike Ross prompted for MFA during this sign-in? And if the admin, if I have permission to view these records, Copilot acts on my behalf and looks at the surrounding records as well as that record that I saw first to see the complete authentication flow. So we've got a natural language summary of the situation here for Copilot and suggested follow-up questions. So that is the quick view of how Copilot helps you right there embedded within Microsoft Entra. Let me now get that one off the screen. Wait, we're on Mac, so I have to go this way. There we go. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the second stage, which is securing access for your employees. I'm sure you're all right in the middle of all of the flexible work models of working from home, working on campus, working from coffee shops everywhere. And of course, then also the boundaries are really blurring between the corporate network and the internet. And everybody wants to have everything quickly and securely, of course. So, and there's modern cloud apps, legacy on-premises resources, inconsistent user experiences. So we're really looking at how can we have secure access, but still keep your users productive and make it a more seamless user experience for them. Before I show you a demo, our recommended steps in this area. So first of all, it's got to be automating your identity and access governance. And like I said, a lot of these links to the actual resources will be in the blog next week, but it's really critical to reduce the complexity by automating these resources, including lifecycle workflows, thinking about when new employees are starting, for example, all of the things that they will be needing for their specific group and identity, or when they're moving jobs or leaving. So, and then the second recommendation is about creating risk-based conditional access policies. Any of you in here have risk-based conditional access policies? Awesome, way to go. Okay, so that's, when a sign-in or user is detected to be at risk, you've got to require phishing-resistant MFA for automatic risk remediation. So that means it gets remediated and doesn't even get flagged as an event. It's just going to get fixed right away with no action needed from the admin. So that's a really great sort of first step into getting more secure access for your workforce. The third recommendation is what I was talking about earlier with the convergence of identity and network access. Unifying your access controls. So many of you in here are using conditional access. You'll be able to use those same conditional access policies and now extend them also to the network and to network access. So it's having all your policies together in one place, unified, so you can use a conditional access evaluation, as well as using the signals from your network to make sure that the network is compliant as part of your conditional access policies. Really thinking about how that can be protected continuously. And it also is, of course, really helpful for replacing legacy solutions and traditional VPNs, all the different logins, and really having that consistency in policy across network and identity. The fourth recommendation are ways to protect against token theft and cookie replay. With machine-powered identity protection and a modern SWIG, you can really detect the risk signals and flag user behavior throughout the network and identity. So you can see the risks on the network level to then inform your conditional access and be able to trigger that. Also using continuous access evaluation, so consistently using the token protection to be able to respond to those risk signals in real time to challenge and or allow access. So next up, I'll show you how that access and identity governance can work together with network access to really create a more seamless and secure onboarding for new employees. All right, slide this one over here. Really hard to mouse from far away. Okay, so what I'll be showing you here, this is the Microsoft Entra Admin Center, all the functionality and more if you're still using the Azure portal. The Entra Admin Center is a place that's designed exclusively for identity admins to really be able to dig in and get visibility across all of the resources that they need. So, Control Shift. See if I can hit forward again to the next one. Now I gotta remember exactly what keystroke I needed to look up. Try to do it. Okay, note to pass self, memorize whatever keystroke that was. Okay, we get to connect. Am I on connect? Yes. Yep. Okay, and then traffic forwarding. Okay, tell
Yes.
me traffic forwarding. Yeah. Okay. Got it. You guys are awesome helpers. Okay, so the admin access established connectors from global secure access. So that's the centralized location. So now you have network controls right here in the Entra Admin Center. And when I go ahead and select connectors and configure an app, there's one over.
There we go.
Thank you all. You're all now Microsoft demoers with me. Thank you. So the admin can create a new on-premises application from here. I got it. All right. No. Looking for application. Yes. Identity governance could work together with network access. Come by the booth, I will show you that. For now, we'll move forward to securing access for customers and partners. So this is an area we realize at Microsoft Entra, we haven't been talking about this quite as loudly until last month when we released our general availability for Microsoft Entra External ID, which is a new shared platform between the rest of Microsoft Entra and our customer-facing, our customer identity and access management platform. So now what you'll see, something that a lot of you have been asking for, are the capabilities that you have, say for co-branding, et cetera, will now be available in both. Some of the features all the features from Microsoft Entra ID being available within the customer identity and access management as well. So you'll see those more converging over time as we create user-centric experiences. Also, the Entra ID is, there's a free trial until July 1st, so at that point it's also worth checking it out. For right now, within customer identity and access management, the recommendations that we have from what we've been seeing of best practices. Number one, really looking to protect your external identities against identity compromise. So implementing those granular conditional access policies also for your business partners, your guests, and any business collaborators you have. And also fraud protection and identity verification are also pretty critical in protecting those identities. Looking at that access governance and implementing that automated governance as well for partners, for your contractors, and for business guests. These are the same things you're doing over and over. So having them be automated within the life cycle to make sure that you're ensuring least privilege access for all of them. Third recommendation, super important, to really manage and remove any excessive collaborator and guest access. If you look, you'll probably see, once you look at the visibility to it, that you'll have guest access or contractors who aren't even there anymore, but still have full access, leaving that door open for attackers. Just going through and doing that, and also enabling your business managers to be able to revoke those rights. So having them as a second set of eyes to make sure they can review and extend. You can set up periodic reviews. Is this person still working here? Do they still need this access? And having them be able to shut it down themselves. You can also customize and control how customers are signing up and using your applications and protecting those customer-facing applications with your sign-out as well. And the fourth stage is securing access in any cloud. So we actually have a blog today, which is announcing our multi-cloud internet or multi-cloud identity strategy that I'll tell you about. But you know that like the cloud-related services are really dependent on workload and workload communications, and that's also bringing a lot of risk to it. So last week, and there's a blog that's up about this, and I put the AKA link for it as well. We have a State of Multi-Cloud Security report. And in the identity permission space, this is really where we got to see a lot of the data of the problem of over-permissioning. So we had a hunch that this was true, but now that we've had Microsoft Entra Permissions Management out there in the marketplace, we could track and look. Even the ones who are more advanced and have the permissions management running, it's a pretty serious reality check. So 51,000 different permissions are out there, which is a growth 22% last year, and over half of them are high risk. Those are risky situations. And of all of those 51,000 permissions, only 2% are used. So 98% of permissions are just sitting there kind of waiting for attackers, which is pretty scary. And then especially if you extend that to the third data point, that over 50% of those identities are super identities, right? So super identities means the super identity it's a user or it's a workload identity that has access to all the permissions and all the resources across your entire cloud estate. So half of all identities have access, have the keys to the kingdom, and if there's a breach, they can move laterally and kind of get to anything they want. So just even taking a look and comparing and learning from here about, okay, what are your permissions looking like? Especially with workload identities, which outnumber humans 10 to 1 now. probably even more than that since that data point. But looking at some of those numbers, and it's a pretty sobering check-in. So what we announced today in our blog is our new approach for a cloud access management platform. And we have that there at our vision blog. I know I'm running a little bit out of time, so I'll encourage you to take a picture of that one and go check out that blog. But this is about managing identity and access for everyone and everything across the entire multi-cloud infrastructure. So that's AWS, Google Cloud, Azure. We've been multi-cloud and identity and network access for a long time, but now we're going to be looking at how we can really manage multi-cloud in a single place and consider it all to be a single platform with unified controls. But we do have recommended steps also for you to do today. So number one, with a permissions management or other cloud infrastructure entitlement management solution, really getting visibility into all of those identities, see what your numbers are like in terms of how many high-risk permissions do you have, how many inactive workload identities you have, how many compromised workload identities you have. So often they're just set it and forget it and running out there and really open for potential attacks. Looking at those super identities that maybe don't need to be super identities and just should have the right-sized amount of permissions. Going through and remediating those risky permissions and access rights. So removing unnecessary permissions and replacing those with just-in-time permissions. We talked about workload to workload identities with the interactions in there. Taking a look we have Microsoft Entra Workload ID to look at the workload identities that are running right now in your tenant and in your clouds. And then being sure to set up continuous monitoring to enforce that least privileged access and getting the reporting that you need to really be keeping track of these permissions. I'm running out of time, so that's why I'm a little speeding through, but thank you. So the blog for all of this with deep links to our resources and documentation to do these steps will be in the blog that comes out on June 4th. The blog on CAMP, Cloud Access Management Platform, and some of our other strategies are on the Microsoft Security blog. Keep an eye on the Microsoft Entra blog on Tech Community, and also what's new in the Entra Admin Center. This is another admin center, great hit. It used to be, we know, you had to be looking at different places for what's new, what are we releasing, go look on the blog, look at all these places. We've heard you, and we're communicating more transparently. It's now actually in the product, the list of what's available, what's in public preview, what's coming next on the roadmap. It's right there in the product now, in what's new, and all of our documentation. But don't leave yet, keep your cameras out, because I'm inviting you to our party tonight. Everyone who came, you're in this room. We are having a mixer from 7 to 9 p.m. Pretty close by, across at the other hotel. But register for tonight's event, and we'll give you all those details. Just use that QR code. And then I hope to see you there. I hope to see you at the booth. And then tomorrow morning, we have a power breakfast about unifying the access controls against identity, network, and endpoint that I encourage you to attend as well. And then Melanie up here and Sarah Scott will be showing you secure access with AI, giving you a tour of Copilot for security. Thank you, and thank you for putting up with my demo.